Okay, hello, and welcome to this eSchool News webinar, Fortifying Your K12 School District, Navigating Cyber Threats and Compliance in 2024. My name is Kevin Hogan. I'm the Content Director for eSchool News, and I'm happy you are joining us today for what I know will be a very insightful and important conversation. This event is brought to you by UDT. UDT is a technology solutions provider that modernizes, secures, and manages complete IT systems for commercial enterprises, state and local governments, and education organizations. From endpoint and edge, data center to cloud, and the systems in between, UDT delivers integrated IT managed and lifecycle services, cybersecurity, computing, and connectivity solutions with a singular focus: empowering our customers to make insights-driven IT decisions that drive their most important digital priorities. Founded in 1995, UDT is headquartered in Florida with principal offices and solution teams across the United States. For more information, visit udtonline.com. Now, before we get to our conversation, I'd like to take a minute to go over some features of the platform that we're using for this webinar. The event will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about missing a thing. Within a few days, you'll also receive an email message that contains a link to the recorded webinar, along with a PDF of the slides. If you have a question or a comment, there's a chat function that you can launch. Feel free to use this feature to contact someone from the eSchool News team if you have any technical questions. But also, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments on the conversation, please include those in that chat function. It really kind of helps our panelists get an idea of what you want to get out of this webinar. So with these housekeeping items out of the way, let's get started with our conversation and some introductions. First, George Fernandez. George is the VP of Managed Solutions at UDT. He brings over 25 years experience in designing, developing, and implementing high-performance technology and information security solutions. At UDT, he leads the managed solution strategy for education, state and local government, and commercial customers. With an extensive background in infrastructure, cybersecurity, and compliance strategy, as well as service design and user experience, George has a proven track record in managing robust IT ecosystems to achieve the best possible customer outcomes. Also with us today is Ash Summer. Ash is the Senior Security Technical Specialist for Microsoft US Education. He is a cybersecurity expert with over 10 years of experience in the field. As a security specialist at Microsoft, he leads that company's conversation and advises how schools and universities can protect their digital assets and ensure compliance with industry standards. So again, before we start the conversation, I think we'd like to ask the audience a question to kind of give our panelists an idea of where you are when it comes to cybersecurity strategies. So if you could take a minute and answer the question, what percentage of your IT budget is allocated to cybersecurity efforts? I'm going to guess 0 to 5 will not be a popular answer, George.
Not if it is, I think the conversation is going to take a different angle.
That's right. So while you're answering that question, maybe we'll just kind of jump into the weeds here, George and Ash, and let's talk about the state of play of cybersecurity in K12. Now, the past few years, even during the height of the pandemic, I would have conversations with tech directors and superintendents, and just even in the middle of the madness, and I'd ask them what was the #1 priority for them in terms of keeping their districts together, and it was still cybersecurity. I mean, even during a time when they're going to forced remote learning and all kinds, handing out crazy hotspots to kids to get access, it was still that worry about keeping the network safe from cyber criminals. Now, what does that threat landscape look like for 2024? Specifically, now that we're in an election year, does that have an impact on education in terms of cyber threats? Maybe George, I'll have you kick it off.
Yeah, and again, Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for that great introduction, Kevin. So look, and from our standpoint, when we're looking at it, an election year, right? How we see this is like any other major event, or season that or occasion that happens, right? During Christmas, we have to have a heightened alert on, phishing campaigns. Your Amazon package couldn't be delivered. Click on this link and let's do this, right? So because of and we'll get a little bit more into this after, as we move forward, but because of the maturity that I guess, if you want to call it hacking and compromising, the maturity that now is an industry, the maturity that's grown into today, what we're seeing is that there's more intelligence, so there's more targeted attacks. So things like, polls. Hey, who do you want to vote for? But before you do that, give me your name, give me your telephone number, and give me your birth date. Well, guess what? And give me those of your kids. You put a couple of those together, and what do you have now? Mom's password, Joey, his birth date, and my birth date, right? So these are the things that we have to be looking for, because now, like you said it, Christmas, the holidays is 1 or 2 months. Election is an election year, right? So now it's a year where they're focused on getting information, and the closer we get to the election, exploiting that information.
Yeah, Ash, does that resonate?
Yeah, so I think, from my experience in the field, I can tell you from that perspective, one of the major call outs that may be familiar is LA Unified School District, right? That's the second largest school district here in California. That's one of my accounts. And I was involved in the recovery process, if you will, once they got breached in a ransomware incident. So all of this is public information, so I'm not sharing anything proprietary, just FYI. And this breach happened during a Labor Day weekend. So attackers try to target certain school districts at a time when they know that the IT or security staff is not around, right? Either it's going to be during the summer break, spring break, or a major holiday when they know that the security staff won't be there, or after our security staff won't be there. And oftentimes you will notice that the attack is going to be on school districts that are much more wealthier, if you will. LA Unified being one of them. Being that they are second largest, internally we classify them as enterprise. They just have so many users, close to 500,000 student, faculty, and staff. So which basically means they have tons of assets, tons of data, that's floating around, and that poses a risk, right? And if you are not properly protecting your environment, then you're basically opening yourself up to the world that's out there. So yesterday I was real quick, Kevin, I was doing a quick research on my part, and I came to find out that ransomware attacks or cyber attacks have increased 105% in K12 education. So, that should give you some perspective in terms of how attackers are narrowly just targeting K12 schools, because they know they are understaffed, under-resourced, especially during the pandemic. Most of the staff have been let go, budget constraints are there, proper security is not around. So there's tons of other factors that are at play. One of the superintendents had told me that factors like the budget deficit for state of California is also impacting K12 schools as well. And then the funding, aspect that we're going to touch on hopefully later, that's also impacting K12 schools as well.
Yeah. One of the things I find interesting when having conversations about cybersecurity efforts in school districts, it's as much about the behaviors of not only the students, but of faculty and administration, as opposed to something there being like a purely technological solution, like in terms
Right.
of the hack getting in, right? George, maybe you could talk a little bit about the behaviors and some examples about how bad actors are amping up their efforts on kind of on the psychological side. You mentioned about kind of the election quizzes, but give us some other examples of, I guess, are we talking about phishing?
Yeah, and look, Kevin, going back to what I had mentioned, right? Cybercrime is a mature industry. Today, it is a very mature, it's an industry, right? And I think I was reading up Forbes kind of describes a mature industry in an industry that has clearly like delineated areas of specialization, right? And monetization in order to create a trade, right? So if you think about it, it's very today the cybercrime industry has things like access brokers. What are access brokers doing? Their sole focus is brute force attack passwords. How do I get access? Right? They get that, and then the cybercrime organizations are buying this. That's one less job they have to do, right? It's one less thing they have to do. Now they can focus on being able to, when they're in there, what are we going to do during the dwell period, right? How quickly can we get from getting in to dropping a reconnaissance software that's going out and doing discovery, and where can we get to now moving laterally and attacking and elevating privileges, etc., right? Ad gypsies. Right now they have people that are doing nothing but ads, so they're building ads that you're going to click on and provide me information. Well, that's one less thing cyber organizations have to do. They're actually subcontracting out all of these areas so that when they've identified their target, they're ready to go, right? We mean business. So what's happening is now you have all of these. Now there isn't jack of all trades. Now there's masters of one. And this is what's happening within the cybercrime, what now today is an industry where these cyber organizations are spending a lot of money, they're investing, and as we can see, they're getting a return on their investment, right? So these are the things that we have to be ready for. It's not just that now it's just one and they're casting out a net. No, they are being very specific, as Ash mentioned, right? The increase in ransomware in the schools. It's not because they had access brokers that are specific and they work on the education vertical. That's their focus, right? And when they see a weakness there, they invest money now into the schools, right? And how do we access that? So now they're grabbing funds and they're actually investing in certain areas. It's not just that overnight it happened. There had to be a conscious effort for that rise to happen.
So how do our readers, our listeners, who and our audience members here, respond to that? I mean, and how do they combat it? So I'll go back. We actually got our poll results in, and 30% of the folks who are in this conversation, less than 5% of their IT budget is allocated to cybersecurity efforts. Even more telling, 57% don't know where that falls in. So, we're joking about it, but it still seems to be an issue where IT teams, the school districts need to know what those first steps should be. Ash, do you have any advice for the folks who don't know or have a small budget allocated? What should they do this afternoon after they get off the webinar? What are the first steps?
Well, I don't know if you can achieve this afternoon, but I'll tell you what a good strategy or good approach could be. Most of my customers, my recommendation to them have been doing a business impact analysis, right? Understanding, what assets are coming end of life, what applications are coming end of life, what's vulnerable in your environment is key, right? That's very important for you to know. And oftentimes, you can utilize programs that are offered by your current vendors, right? If you're working with us, obviously here at Microsoft, we have cloud security assessments that you can do, cloud solution assessments that you can do. It basically is going to help you paint a picture of what security gaps you currently have in your environment and how you can remediate those gaps, whether it be pairing up additional license, a premium license attached to it, or maybe some other technology that you can bring in to remediate that particular problem. Now, those assessments can be just defined within your cloud environment, but the business impact analysis is going to be the whole picture of your current state, right? Which is going to be your cloud environment plus your on-premises environment as well. And if you're doing any multi-cloud business today, that's going to include that picture as well. So business impact analysis and cloud security assessment would be my go-to. From there, you can get those quantitative figures, right? The dollar amounts, the asset values. Then you can move all of that data, put it in your business justification document, and present it up to leadership and ask for additional funding. So that would be my response to that.
And Kevin, if I may add to what Ash just mentioned, so I saw some data that close to 100% of the school districts in the United States have a Microsoft Office 365 license of some sort.
Yes.
When you're doing this analysis, what Microsoft, you can have an E3, you can have what is at your fingertips, right, available right now that doesn't require you going to ask for more funds from a feature set. What do you have today that's at your fingertips that you haven't adopted that's going to help you implement security right off the back? What is Microsoft offering you? Microsoft knows and understands, right? I mean, we partner with them very closely. We're a top partner of Microsoft. When we're coming into them is because obviously, as you know, to UDT, our roots started. This is our 30th year anniversary. So everyone knows, happy 30th year anniversary to us. The 30 years that we've been here, right, from day one, education, that's where our roots are. So education is near and dear to our hearts. We partner with Microsoft, not just because of who Microsoft is, because they follow that also. What they have available today to schools in order for them to protect themselves, and a lot of our schools don't know, reach out to us, reach out to Ash and to Microsoft. We can guide you in saying, wait, before you spend $1, let me tell you what you have. And what you have may free up other dollars to bring in experts to leverage the technology that you have at your fingertips today. There is programs that Microsoft offers that says, here is funding for your partner of choice to go ahead and help you adopt what's at your fingertips, right? So apart from understanding, like Ash said, very business impact analysis, #1 in my book also, apart from that, it's going to tell you, hey, by the way, you have all of this at your fingertips. Let's go after the low-hanging fruit. And you'd be amazed at how much protection they can go from a very low percentage posture to a very secure posture, probably spending very little to maybe nothing, right, initially. So that's very important. And again, like I said, close to 100% of the school districts today, Microsoft is present, right? So that business impact analysis is going to tell you what's at your fingertips.
Yeah,
Right,
and,
so it's
and
just-
Jo-
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just to add to that, I think that's a great call out, George, because we do have funding programs like ESIF and customer investment funding, partner investment engine, go big deployment offers that are already out there. I think one additional thing I wanted to quickly touch on, Kevin, was consolidating your point solutions, right? And reducing your technical debt. I think that's something that most organizations don't understand. For example, like here at Microsoft, our security solutions check off most of those boxes, right? That Proofpoint can do, that Palo Alto Cortex can do, or any other third-party solutions, right? So when you consolidate these different point solutions, you're essentially reducing your technical debt because you're not paying for 5, 6 different solutions anymore. You're just paying for one specific solution, and you have that set renewal every single year that that you can account for and you can track for. And I feel like that's one other opportunity, cost opportunity that often gets missed or overlooked. So that's something that should be considered as well.
And Ash, I know, because I know Kevin likes to ask about data. One thing that we've also noticed is minimizing technical footprint in a specific in a specific, like let's say in cybersecurity or whether it be in CRM. When you minimize that, your adoption rate of that technology goes up by 80%. CRM just had something not too long ago. So your adoption of meaning ROI, getting the most bang for your buck out of when you narrow it down, right? Now you're adopting and you're really getting, you know, the most bang for your buck out of Microsoft or the solution of choice. Absolutely.
Yep. So that's really interesting. So I mean, the first thing is to build awareness of what you have. You'll probably find that you're underutilizing. It's kind of like when I use Microsoft Word. There's 15 tools in there that no one ever told me about until I discovered them. then I use them at a wider scale. But then to go back to the folks who are listening to this conversation, these might not have been, you know, skill sets they had when they started this position, but it's just kind of grown as the positions have evolved. To go back to, you need to put together some professional development for fact, to go back to that human behavior aspect of cybersecurity. Talk a little bit about, there needs to be some marketing to your faculty and administration and students. There needs to be some professional development baked in, maybe at the beginning of the year. Can you talk a little bit about some of the procedures from the human side that they can start tomorrow when it comes to the defense of their networks?
Yep. Yeah. So look, from our standpoint, it's funny you mentioned that, right? Because as Ash and I have been mentioning, and early on when I mentioned, you know, that, you know, who are the cyber criminals going after? Right? Notice how I said things like they're putting out a poll, right? A computer doesn't answer a poll, a human answers a poll. A computer doesn't click on an ad, a human clicks on an ad. A computer, a phone doesn't put in information into a form, right? So we have what we call our UDT's patch management as a program, patch management as a service solution, right? Where we offer patch management services to our customers, specifically around the K-12. I just built into this product is what I call end user patching. We don't patch our end users. And what do I mean by that? Cyber awareness. Hey, Christmas is coming. Here's what you should be looking for. I worry about the vulnerabilities on this. And Microsoft tells me the vulnerabilities that are in my Windows device. And I download them and I patch them, and I have a 25-page policy of how I should patch and I need to be patched. And they tell us about that every day. But no one checks to see if my end users are patched. Are we patching our end users? Are we telling them, hey, Christmas is coming, here's what not to do? Are we doing this continuously, or are we just doing it to check a box so that we can have our cyber security insurance and our premiums don't go up, right? So being consistent, right, with our humans, as you mentioned, Kevin, and being in front of them, and yes, marketing to them what safe environment, what to expect when the new year starts, what to expect from your students, what to expect with this new tool that you're using. What are the perpetrators doing? What are they going to target? How you should be handling things like AI that I think we're going to get into and stuff, right? So again, patching our end users is critical because again, they are the number one target.
Yeah, and just to add to that, from strictly the perspective of, you know, the Microsoft tools, we have something called attack simulation training, right? That's baked into our Defender products. And I find that to be the most useful tool to train your users, or at least create awareness, prepare your users in certain situations where they are hit by a phishing email and they don't know what identifiers to look for, and they end up clicking on that link. The attack simulation training is built in such a way that it actually mimics the actual phishing email campaign. And then once your user clicks on that phishing link, it takes you to that training page and it actually walks you through what exactly you need to identify in a phishing email that comes in. So I feel like that's key and important. And if you can do that on a regular basis, that's very important as well. and then all up security training, things like physical security training, tailgating and things of that sort. I feel like those programs need to be also done on a regular basis so that it's always fresh for your users, it's always top of their mind, and they always know what to look out for. Additionally, I feel like having proper support in place is important as well. And over security is not something that's not good, right? You don't want to over secure your environment and reduce productivity. You always want to strike that one-on-one balance where you're balancing enough security at the same time making sure that the user is productive as well. So striking that balance is very important as well. And you can achieve that by, if there's a new product or feature like George called out, you can go ahead and do a soft launch of it, like launch it to a small group and collect user feedback, send out a Microsoft Forms to them. And depending on their feedback, you can go ahead and make those policy changes or fine tune your policies to make sure you're observing that one-to-one balance of, security and productivity. So that's my thought on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah, George, talk to that a little bit. I mean, again, we're talking almost like folks need to become psychiatrists as much as or therapists as much as they are tech people, especially when it's striking that balance. I know most recently one of the big changes in districts is multi-factor authentication, and that is something that annoys a lot of people when it comes to logging in and the ease of using it. And say even in classrooms while you're trying to kind of log in or get students logged in, what are some insights that you might have on being able to kind of strike that balance to have people understand that these techniques are there to keep themselves and their data safe, but at the same time not interrupt the teaching and learning?
Look, I think it's ease, right? It's how the approach is. Ash mentioned something that plays into this question that you just asked, and it's technology footprint, right? Look at the difference of me implementing something that you're familiar with as into something new. MFA is a perfect thing. A lot of our users don't understand that things like Microsoft Authenticator, it's there, right? This is something that they are used to. It has kind of the look and feel. It's Microsoft. You see it in the Microsoft down. So now it's something that they're familiar to. You're going to be a lot more receptive to adopting something that you're somewhat familiar with, right? If I am now introducing you to something that's in an ecosystem that you're already familiar with, there isn't a big curve into implementing it into the environment, right? It's going to come in rather smooth. Then that's what we should be looking at. So this impact analysis and understanding of what's at your fingertips is huge when we're implementing these tools. Look at what you have handy. Whatever you have handy is probably more familiar than introducing some other third-party MFA. It's not that other MFA tools are not good. They are. But introducing them is going to be a lot more difficult. And guys, the truth is, I said it, close to 100% of the schools already have Microsoft. Microsoft is familiar. That ribbon, that's why they don't change it, because it's familiar. That's why everybody uses Word and Excel, because of that ribbon that they're familiar with. And it's consistent everywhere. Same thing. Those blues that you see and that Excel green, it's there for a reason, because people are familiar with it. It makes them feel comfortable. So when you're going to implement these security options, bring down that technology footprint, see what you have. Let's make it easy for our users to adopt it. And in the end, we become a lot more secure.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think user education should be front and center, in addition to what just George said. When you educate your users on the importance of MFA, what does it resolve for the organization? Why is there a sense of urgency tied to this? And tying that back to what I had mentioned earlier about doing a soft launch, making sure the users are comfortable, you make sure you're not overprotecting your environment, striking that one-on-one balance. These two key things can be a successful deployment for your environment, right? One additional thing would be, change management, right? You always want to make sure that you have a change management process in place. I strongly recommend to my customers to have a CAB, a change advisory board put together. It doesn't have to be a set of technical experts. You can have one technical expert and one person from legal, one administrative user, could be a mix of users, right? So that you can get feedback. You can get technical feedback. You can get operational feedback. You can have a rollback strategy if a deployment goes wrong, or if you start getting a lot of pushback from your customers. So you need to have a change advisory board for that reason, because you need to consider all these different factors that come into play. So that's what I have to add to that.
Great, thank you. Now, in 2024, for us to be having a conversation about education technology and to not have mentioned AI after a half an hour, it's a pretty good feat. But we do want to talk about it because it is something that really is affecting all aspects of managing a school district's technology resources. I'll throw it out to both of you guys. What role is AI playing in the cybersecurity landscape from both the offensive side as well as the defensive standpoints? And how can schools effectively integrate AI into their cybersecurity posture?
So I can go ahead and go first on that one, because I've been seeing all these crazy things in the field recently. So for the most part, if I was to focus on the offensive side, it's the sophistication of the attack, right, that attackers are using. So they could have targeted phishing campaigns whereby you'll have tons of phishing emails kind of coming into your organization. And if they have email addresses for every single user, that's going to be a big problem, because all your users are going to be hit with that flood of emails that are going to come in. And it's going to be recurring, right? Repetitive. So that's one thing that's frustrating. And then fortunately, our tools do a fantastic job of identifying these phishing emails, and they try to mitigate that, right? And then another technique that we're seeing is defense evasion, or I'm sorry, detection evasion measures, right? Whereby if there's this complicated ransomware that gets installed in your environment, it tries to evade detection based on if it's able to see that the security tool is trying to run a active scan on the specific computer. It can go ahead and mask itself. It can go ahead and change its hash value, so on and so forth, in order to evade that detection and still stay in that particular environment. So that's the complicated scenarios that I've been seeing from an offensive standpoint. And from a defensive standpoint, for us, we've been leveraging AI and machine learning technologies for a very long time, right? In our Microsoft solutions. As a matter of fact, our Defender tools already had automated investigation and response tool built into it. Basically, what that tool does is it actually mimics the steps of a SOC analyst, whereby it can look at a particular threat, qualify it, triage it, qualify it as a positive threat or a false positive. And if it's positive, then it's going to go ahead and take remediation actions on its own. So that's basically the tool doing the work for you, and you don't have to, right? In addition to that, the most recent thing that we've got is Copilot, which has been front and center, right? So now we have Copilot for security, which is we just got launched this month, and we're super excited about it. That particular tool basically reduces your time to investigation and remediation. So in the security world, all of you guys may be familiar with the mean time to detection and mean time to remediation, right? How soon can you find the threat, and how quickly can you take care of it? And our Copilot tool can do that within seconds. So it has the ability to analyze a specific incident, and then in addition to that, is going to go ahead and give you guided recommendations on what you need to do in order to take care of this particular problem. And all of that done is within seconds, and all the remediation is in one single pane. So I feel like that in terms of, if I'm strictly speaking from the perspective of Microsoft and our Defender tools, I feel like we're one step ahead of the attackers, but it won't be long when attackers start leveraging, technologies like Copilot and other machine learning models that are out there to be on the same pane together.
Yeah, I tell you, Kevin, the one thing that I'm seeing is, especially in K through 12, right? School districts are drinking from the AI fire hydrant, right? So AI is coming from curriculum, right? How do we leverage AI in order to teach our students in more efficiently, more effectively, right? Then it's also coming from administration, right? How do we leverage AI in order to make our school, our district, the best district, right? How to get us to be A schools and all of this. And then you're also looking at AI from how are students using AI? Are they using it properly, right? Are we going to start adopting AI instead of, blocking AI, right? And then it comes from the IT side. So they're getting AI from everywhere, right? So being able to have a partner like UDT that not only understands K through 12, but our job is school's job, be the best at educating our future, right? My hat's off to every teacher, every administrator out there. Thank you for what you do daily, and you do a phenomenal job. Continue to do that. That's why our nation is phenomenal in delivering education to our students. Let's continue focusing on that. That's why we want to come in, because we know that they're the experts at teaching our future. Let us help you protect it. All of these tools that Ash is mentioning, we leverage them. Keeping up with this, keeping up with AI trends outside of those that are used in order to teach, in order to make a school better, is very difficult. Not only is it difficult, it can become very expensive, right? Because of our understanding of the K through 12, we built our security solutions to focus on things that are happening in the K through 12 space. That eliminates now we can focus on here. What does focus do? It allows us to be more efficient. And when we're more efficient, now we know that we have to be cost effective in the K through 12 space. It's not that we're securing less, is that we're being more targeted in what we're monitoring, how we're monitoring it. Because we have so much data. We handle 5 million devices on a yearly basis that goes through our configuration center. All flavors of operating systems, right? From staff to faculty, to administrators, to students. We have data that resides with UDT that gives us a breadth of information on what's happening in the K through 12. How are devices being used? Where are they being used most often? How often are they being used? At what times are they being used? This data allows us to hone in, right, on the landscape around K-12, and therefore being more targeted, being more efficient, and being more financially feasible for our schools. So my recommendation, don't drink from the fire hydrant all by yourselves. Let us come in, right? Let us bring that down, right? And take you back to the days when we used to grab the fire hose and just drink from the hose that was coming from the garden hose, right? Let's go from drinking from the fire hydrant. Let's start drinking from and now it's more specific. We want you targeted on, because look, AI, we got to be good stewards. We got to be good citizens of AI, right? Data that goes in needs to go in the right way, needs to be contained. So we need to understand that, so we don't have student data getting into the wrong hands, personal data getting into the wrong hands, right? So we want them focusing on how they're going to use AI to teach and grow schools. Let us protect you around AI.
Good stuff. A few questions are coming in from the audience, which I love. Here's a quick one. I think, Ash, you had mentioned Copilot for security. One attendee is asking, would that be a paid add-on for K-12?
Yes. Yes, it will be. And so the reason why it's a paid add-on to our premium license is because of the resources it's utilizing in the backend, right, from the cloud. It's using a large amount of compute power in order for you to in order for it to integrate into your tenant and for you to ask those generative AI questions and whatnot. So it is going to be a additional cost on top of your premium licensing, your AFAB licensing.
Great. And then another question that came in here. I'll give you a little bit of a script. We're a Microsoft district, and we use Microsoft's cybersecurity products, including MFA and MS Authenticator.
Okay.
We're looking to roll out a separate network for BYOD that staff can access with their personal phones. We're hoping to roll out MFA with Authenticator, but there is a concern that the district would capture data from the staff's phones. A union president saw that, even though he wasn't actively using his phone. His phone apps were sending data through the network. So how do we alleviate this concern? Perfect segue, by the way, into my next question about managing actual physical devices. So there's a real live example. Ash, George, how about it?
Yeah. So number one, so the device management piece is through Intune in our platform. The way that works is that it actually creates a separate profile. So it's not actually transmitting your personal data over the wire, if you will. It has its own sandboxed profile that's in your phone, right? So that's one thing. If you're concerned about the transmission of personal data, over the wire, and if you're concerned with somebody being able to see your personal data, I can tell you right now through Intune that won't be possible. Even the whole remote wipe situation that was an issue before, through our Intune technology, that has been resolved as well, whereby we're not wiping your entire phone now. We're just wiping out the company profile that was created on your phone. So I would recommend reaching out to your Microsoft account team on that one. Maybe an Intune expert can jump on the call and kind of expand or learn your use case first and try to make a better recommendation. But I just don't see how a personal information that can be transmitted, over the wire through your company and end up in your Microsoft 365 tenant. I don't see that happening.
So here's the bigger concern, Kevin. My bigger concern is you'd be okay with me allowing you into a network without MFA, right? So the fact that I'm securing you on the way in and I'm trying to be secure as into who I let into this environment from BYOD. Number one, kudos to the viewer that sent that in, and they're putting MFA in a BYOD network. So hats off to you. Good job. Right. And then what I posed, and look, we get these questions. No one questions when we jump on a free network on, Royal Caribbean's cruise, right? When we're on there, because we got to be connected all the time. When we get to Starbucks, if we think Starbucks isn't gathering information on what we're saying, how we're saying it, when we're saying it, what we want, what we don't want, right? We see it all the time. You jump on your social media. Wow, I was just talking about that. Yeah, that's what and we're not worried about this. But now when we're going to go into a school, we're worried about, MFA, and we're going to be getting, no, we should be saying, whoa, this is a network that I want to be in. We're providing security to get in, right? So I think it's more of, we go back, right? Educating and understanding, hey, we're not trying to be intrusive. We're trying to block out the intruders, right? I'm not trying to gather data. I'm trying to prevent bad actors from infiltrating to gather data. So again, congratulations to that user that's doing that in a BYOD network. I hadn't heard that in a while.
Yeah, and just to add to that, George, like, in order for a device to be attached to a tenant, you can create certain configuration profiles. Now, I'm not trying to get too technical here, but basically you can create controls whereby if the device does not meet minimum requirements, it cannot connect to your environment in the first place, right? A good example is if it's not patched, it's not updated. When you go to portal.office.com, it's going to say your device does not meet the minimum requirements. You can even install company profile, so that company portal, that particular tool does a discovery on that particular device, and it's going to tell you right then and there, hey, your device does not meet the minimum requirements and you won't be able to sign into such and such organization. So those are certain controls that are pre-presented, if you will, to the user. So as a user, you would know, okay, oh, it looks like I need to update my phone or my laptop or my personal device, and then I can go ahead and connect to my organization, right? So those are some identifiers, and that could be part of that education as well.
Yep.
Good stuff. Got really into the weeds there. All right. I think it's really important to see. Let's go back a little bit to our conversation at the beginning where we were talking about costs and doing a budget analysis and looking at about what you have and what might be underutilized. The fact is, there's still going to be parts of the budget that are going to be necessary to go out and maybe convince a school board or at least your superintendent on the need for, again, add-ons like the co-pilot for security. And as we all know, budgets are tight, and with ESSER funds expiring and multiple funding demands being made, how can districts implement sustainable cybersecurity practices? Do you have any tips on how to kind of work that out over the long term?
Yeah, look, I think there's some things that I'll mention here, but number one is don't go into this alone. Again, I'm going to tell you, don't go into this alone. Even being able to sit down with district boards, right? Being able to sit down, we do this on a daily basis, right? We do this from a cybersecurity standpoint. We do this at the curriculum level. We have teams that this is what we're doing, right? So what I do tell you is don't go into this alone. Microsoft partners with us when we're doing and sitting down and talking to schools over on, hey, let's talk about acquiring more budget, but let's see the budget that we have. How are we spending today's dollars, right? What are we doing? Where can we, again, narrow our technology footprint? What can we adopt, right? What services can we acquire through funding that's available? Things like E-rate, even though security, bad word in E-rate, I think we're making a lot of progress in Capitol Hill. I think this is going to be great news for everyone. I think very soon here, Kevin, we spoke about this in our last webinar. I think our nation and our higher ups are seeing that security is key, and that funding now has to focus on security. And I think that's coming down the pipe. I feel very confident that our nation's going to do what's right for our education system, and security is going to be funded properly. But with that said, there are some things that we need to keep our eyes out, right, for, and where are our attacks happening? And there's certain things that we can do today to protect ourselves. You mentioned asking, hey, how can we protect our devices and stuff? That we can protect the infrastructure with implementing, as Ash mentioned, things like policies, right? Procedures, vendor management, supply chain, the number one vector for attacks, supply chain. We heard it with MGM, it was through an HVAC. HVAC is, and why? Because it's the one-to-many, right? So what are we doing? Vendors are coming, we're putting in devices. Nobody worries about the vendor system that's inside of our environment. So what are we doing? We're going after the vendor system. We penetrate one, now we go into many. HVAC systems, security systems, maintenance systems, curriculum systems. So all of these things that can be part of supply chain, put in a vendor management program, understand your vendor's posture, put in your policies. If a device is in my infrastructure, it's going to have my Defender EDR installed in there with my policies. It's going to follow my patching policies, right? We're going to scan that device for vulnerabilities as we scan our whole infrastructure. If it's in our infrastructure, it's our infrastructure, we protect it. Oh, we can't run on a Windows a supported operating system, well, then you can't do business with us, right? This is the stance that we have to take, right? Vendor management is critical, and you don't know the holes that we plug by just putting in a vendor management policy in place.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
to
Go ahead,
oh,
Ash.
no, just to add to that, I think what's also important is, what George had mentioned earlier about making use of what you already have today. I've seen a lot of school districts not fully utilizing their A3 licensing, right? There's so many things in there. And part of it kind of falls on us. I feel like we need to do a better job in educating our users. What are those individual line items that are included inside of your A3 licensing? And what problem does that product resolve for you, right? So that's one thing. So I would highly recommend sitting down with your account manager or the partner UDT to understand in detail what are you licensed for today, and how does that actually fit with your security needs and your compliance needs, right? That's one. Second to that would be doing that business impact assessment that I had mentioned earlier. Cloud security assessments are done by our partners as well. Leveraging those two. If you need to ask for additional funding, you obviously need quantifiable data, right? That's what's going to give you that quantifiable data. And I've seen a lot of school districts also using these different point solutions. So as I mentioned earlier, if there's any opportunities to consolidate these different point solutions into just a Microsoft solution, or any other tool that you feel like that like, for example, you already have OneDrive, and you also have Dropbox, you're also using Google Drive, there is opportunity to consolidate all of that in one platform and have some cost savings on those third-party tools. Specifically to Microsoft, I would say, like, our competitor is Proofpoint, right? If you have Proofpoint and you're paying for A5 licensing, you already have email security. Why do you need to pay for Proofpoint? So there are many ways, and again, all of this is going to be part of your technology assessment that you're going to do. You're going to calculate your ROI, your total cost of ownership. Based off of that assessment, you're going to make that determination of, like, what tools can be displaced and consolidated into, either Microsoft solution, whatever solutions you're using today. So that's going to free up your budget dollars. In addition to that, I would recommend tapping into free programs that are out there. I got the opportunity to meet with CISA at the HIMSS Healthcare Conference, and I was just wowed by the fact that they offered so many free services, right? They offer free cybersecurity assessment, free leadership training. They even help you during a cyber incident. Vulnerability scanning services are free. So all these free services that a typical customer would pay for, I would definitely go in and leverage all of those free services from CISA and take advantage of those. So back to you, Kevin.
Great, Ash. Thanks so much. Now, I knew the toughest part of my job this afternoon was to end the conversation. There's so many different aspects of cybersecurity that we could cover, and I think we did a pretty good job. From talking about doing that audit, building the awareness of what you have, some strategies and tools in which to implement it. But as we finish up here, maybe I'll just give you both a couple minutes to the floor to maybe talk about what you think would be the number one priority for our audience members going forward in the big picture. Not necessarily what they need to do tomorrow, but just in a bigger sense, how they can approach this issue, which obviously is such a number one priority.
Ash,
Yeah.
you want to?
Yeah. So my recommendation would be to, number one, understand what you have in your environment today and tie a measurable metric to it, right? What value are you getting out of your email security solution today? I mean, you can even do that to our solutions as well, right? Microsoft solution. What value are you getting back from your Microsoft solution, your EDR, XDR? If you're using a SIEM solution today, your security incident and event monitoring tools, what value are you getting back? And having a plan in place, having an assessment in place and understanding your current security posture should be number one priority. You need to know what assets you have in your environment. You need to know what vulnerabilities you have in your environment, and you need to know what security gaps are in your environment. Now, oftentimes the two get confused, right? How does vulnerability assessment separate from a security assessment, right? A security assessment is basically a security posture of your environment where you can remediate those particular concerns using a security control. A vulnerability assessment is the patches that you need to do on your under-patch systems. So that's a different picture. Both sides are vulnerable to hackers or adversaries who are going to come in and compromise your environment. So those two key things are very important. On top of that, evaluating your licensing that you have with your current providers. Again, I mentioned those opportunities to consolidate and reduce your technical debt. That's very important as well. And something in addition to that, which is new now, is leveraging AI technologies, right? In terms of security, we've come a long way as a company here at Microsoft, right? Most people see our investment in OpenAI. They think it's all about increasing our stock prices and it's all about profits, right? But I'm going to tell you the answer to that is no, right? Our vision has always been, a mission and vision has always been to empower every person and organization on the planet to do more. And our investment in OpenAI and getting Copilot technology built out was a strategic investment that aligns with our mission. And so I would highly recommend that you leverage the Copilot for Security tool if you can, if you have the budget for it, of course, because those tools can actually help you better protect your environment, help you much more quickly find threats and remediate threats, as I discussed earlier. And of course, from a productivity standpoint, the Copilot for M365 is going to make your users much more productive, right? There's tons of things to see over there. And of course, AI is here to stay and it's not going to go anywhere. Over to you, George.
Yeah, thank you, Ash. And look, I think I would have echoed what Ash just mentioned, or I would have, no, I do echo it. But he mentioned three things. And I know me, even doing this and Kevin, and it sounds sometimes like a lot when you're saying, hey, let's assess, right? Let's invoke, let's leverage, let's configure. But there's two things here, right? What UDT and what our vision is, just like theirs, is accomplish more. We want everyone to accomplish more, right? So my recommendation, don't take on this alone, right? We have our cycle, which is assess and evaluate, plan, execute, maintain, repeat, right? And we can work with you to assess and evaluate. We're partners of Microsoft. We have a practice that does nothing but Microsoft security, Microsoft cloud. We're very mature in that space. We build our management, our professional services, our cyber consulting services all into this, where you can leverage and we can come in and assess. And sometimes you're saying, wow, I have a big environment. I'm the third largest school district in the US. Well, assess, hey, we can't only do the assessment and help you with it, but also it can be funded. There's programs out there. We have access to these programs. We have individuals that are working 24/7, 365 with Microsoft on what are the programs out there that we can leverage and that Microsoft is offering so that our customers can do better. And they know that the way to get to their customers is through their partners like us. So they empower us and they train us and they feed us information and expect us to go into it. So don't take on those three incredible points that Ash pointed out on your own. Give us a call. visit us online, reach out to us, because we're here to help, and we're here to help you find help in order to execute on bettering your security posture, maintaining your security posture, and even on seeing what your security posture is.
Great way to wrap up, George. Thank you. And again, George and Ash, thank you so much for a really informative presentation. And I'd like to thank the audience members for joining us as well and adding in their questions and comments. As a reminder, you'll get an email within the next few days that contains a link to this recording, along with the slides. We'll leave up the QR code here for a few more seconds. So if you want to get more information and get more details about other resources when it comes to defending your districts against cyber attacks. Thanks again, and hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks, guys.
QR
Thank
code,
you.
everyone. Feel free to scan it. It is safe. And Kevin, I want to thank you for leading us and guiding us. Thank you.
Thank you,
Not at all.
Kevin.
Always a great time.